Now let's get a brief overview of the uncertainty that we face in the world today. Prime Minister O'Neill, perhaps you can start the ball rolling.
Thank you very much, and once again, thank you for having me here today on this panel. As we did in Beijing the last time, it's a great honor for me to be here today. Papua New Guinea, just like any other country in the region, we are equally affected by the slowdown in the global economy and the growth rates that we are facing today, particularly in areas where some of our big trading partners like China, Japan, Australia, many of these economies are facing challenges that many of us also face. We are more exposed because of the dependency that we have. Papua New Guinea is an economy that's very much involved in the development of minerals and petroleum sector, which exports to China and many of the countries in the region. With the global commodity prices coming down, it has greatly affected the way we do business. As a result, we had to take some drastic decisions that we need to realign our economy, trying to grow other sectors of the economy like agriculture and tourism, and of course, trying to maintain the growth levels that we have been achieving over the past 14 years. We have, on average, achieved about 8% growth per annum over that time. We expect to achieve that this year and next year. But to maintain that levels of growth, we must realign the economy and, of course, ensure that we create jobs and work closely with business and of course, calculate the way government does its own business in providing services to, in particular in social programs like health, education, and so forth. So that is why we believe that in the region, we have a greatest opportunity, unlike many other regions in the world, that we can continue to lead the global economy and try and make sure we achieve the growth that we have been achieving over the past few years. That way we can be able to continue to open up opportunities for many of our citizens. Like many of the countries in the region, we have a very large population who live in rural communities, and to get them into a formal economy is a great challenge. Getting them to participate in small to medium enterprises. Those are areas that we are looking to develop even further, and this is a great opportunity attending meetings like APEC for us to achieve that. So once again, thank you very much for inviting me to join you on this panel.
Scott, your initial thoughts on the uncertainty we face today?
Well, it's a timely topic. I think that despite some of the economic challenges, the vast majority of companies probably expect more than 50% of their growth to be coming from the APEC economies over the next several years. Certainly that's true for Walmart. If we were to look at the countries in which we do business, it is growth, but chasing growth in the right way. So profitable growth done in a very compliant way for our customers, things like food safety, authentic product are critical. So I think that we are still obviously optimistic about growth, but there's two game changers that we see that are beginning to occur. So the first is e-commerce and the role that technology is playing in terms of the impact that it has upon growth. We see as a traditional bricks and mortar retailer that has very aggressively entered into the technology area. Recently finished an acquisition in China of an online retailer called Yihaodian. This online to offline, this combination of the physical and the digital, giving customers more choice, because frankly, even in economic hard times, customers are pretty consistent as in good time. Quality products at a low price. But I think the second game changer really is around the area of trade facilitation. The TPP will have a meaningful impact. We've done surveys in our countries. I'll use Japan as an example, where tariffs around beef all the way down to ice cream, that as Japan progresses down the road with the implementation of the tariff reductions, our average customer in Japan can save $320 a year in their shopping. So it's important. So these high quality 21st century trade deals, really it's a trade deal with a dress code, are important. But for business, if I were to look at some of the things that have come out with APEC. It is the public-private partnership. So even with the implementation of TPP, the devil's in the detail. So the processes, the paperwork, how you go about actually importing and exporting. I think that there needs to be a pre and a post-TPP implementation partnership between the public and the private if we truly are going to get growth re-kicked again.
All right. Raymond?
Over the last couple of days, I've had quite a number of conversations about the slowdown in growth in the region. And looking at this, stepping back and looking at this from a more global perspective, we are still, Moody's is still quite confident in the growth opportunities in the region. As we look at our sovereign ratings, we see a great deal of stability. It's the only region where we have more positive outlooks than negative outlooks. Asia-Pacific economies are coming to this slowdown, this period of slower growth from a position of real strength. And so certainly on a relative basis are poised to do better than most other regions of the world. And that's a real cause for optimism. We also see the opportunity for continued growth within the current framework of regional integration, regional trade, and capital formation. Certainly in the longer run, looking for enhancements at a systemic level, deepen the integration, whether it's through TPP or other mechanisms, we think is really the path forward. And in doing so, improving the quality of information, the availability of information, whether it's about corporations or municipalities, to facilitate confidence in regional capital transfers, in trade. And that's really a reason for further long-term optimism as we look at the region. In comparison with other regions, whether it's Europe or elsewhere, there is a longer runway, a longer period in which to make adjustments before it would have a further impact on growth. And so we are, as I said, reasonably optimistic about the region's ability to move through this period of slower growth.
Mark?
I think just to reiterate what the colleagues on the panel have said, we think that the fears about Asia growth are overdone, and it hasn't run its course. And we think so for a number of reasons, both positive and negative. And the negative is, in a sense, of what Asia does not have and the advantages it has. It doesn't have regulatory overkill, which Europe, in certainly the financial services industry, between Solvency II and Basel III, has taken root. In Asia, we don't have the same level of restrictions. We don't have the necessity also, the prudent pace and the practical aims of the ASEAN grouping is much more pragmatic than sort of the rigor and the strict discipline within the Eurozone, which again gives us some advantage flexibility. We don't have the dependence on OPEC and oil that others do, and by and large, clearly there are exceptions, but cheaper oil prices are an advantage to the region. Security is another element. Terrorism and extremism are very low in the region, again, compared to others, which itself is a remarkable achievement. And I think also we don't have the same concerns of China's hard landing. The closer you are to China, the less concerns you have. The further away, the greater concerns you have about China. And again, our confidence in China and its growth is immense. Just three positives. The first is there is a clear development path, a clear development trajectory in Asia, where countries sort of go up an up escalator. And we can take PNG, for example, going up to Malaysia, going up to Korea, and people moving up the chain. And I say that path is clear. And Asia has managed the external shocks of 97 and 2008 exceptionally well. Not easy, but I think it's, again, the clear development path is there. The second is that there are identifiable pools of capital. So there is availability of capital, current account surpluses, interregional investment, savings and investment locally will produce pools of capital. And as an insurance company, we see this every day, the accumulation of these pools of capital. And the third element is ensuring you've got bankable and investable projects to invest in. And we take the Philippines as an example. We collect peso every day. We invest in infrastructure through Manila Water, through the toll roads, through Cebu Energy. The ADB do a similar thing on an international basis. AIAB, again, will do a similar thing. So these elements are in place, give us enormous comfort for the future, not without its challenges, but we remain very positive about the region, both on an absolute and a relative basis.
Well, there seems to be a fair bit of optimism when it comes to China, but the World Bank has come out to say there is risk that could be a sharp downturn in China's growth. And also there are questions whether China's transition will be successful, which we hope will be. Raymond, your thoughts on that and why you remain optimistic despite some doubt?
Clearly there is risk. Taking an economy the size of China's, going through the kind of transformation to a consumer consumption-oriented economy with a more decisive role for market forces is a Herculean task. It really is. That being said, it's our view that Chinese policymakers and the authorities have been doing a pretty good job of that. There is a balance that has to continue to go on over a number of years between liberalization and reform and maintaining stability and maintaining growth in the face of this kind of transition. Nonetheless, we think the central scenario, the most likely case, is that this is going to be managed and it's going to be managed effectively. There is no way that I can see to de-risk that. So it's a question of execution and the ability to continue to make more right decisions than wrong decisions and the ability to course correct as need be. And I think China is very aware of that, and I think they have the capacity to do so.
We're talking about sustaining growth. Prime Minister O'Neill, your economy is highly reliant on commodities. What are you doing differently to diversify the economy? How soon can you do that?
Well, we basically reorganize, and our government does business with business community and the private sector. It is important for us to know that governments have always, for many reasons or the other, have added cost to the private sector doing business in some of our respective economies. One way our government tries to do is work closely with the business community in establishing policies that is going to make it easier for them to do business in our country. We want to also have a stable fiscal and monetary policies that is predictable, so that businesses who are doing business there in our country do not feel that there will be continuous changes in the way government sets out some of these policies into the long term. We have also heavily invested in infrastructure, which business requires to grow, particularly in road infrastructure, in seaports and airports. We are taking this time to reinvest in those areas when there's a bit of a slowdown in the private sector investment in the economy. Government is taking up that, adding some stimulus into the economy, and of course, added to that, we are investing heavily in education, trying to have the right skill base that business will require in order for it to grow their activities in whatever sector they are involved in. So we are recalculating the way we grow our economy into the future. Our aim is to maintain a stable growth level, which is predictable, which will continue to provide opportunities for our citizens, and of course, build on the successes that we have had.
Can you build the kind of growth that can trickle down and benefit the poor in your country? Because about 70% of your population still live in rural areas.
Our country is just 40 years old today since assuming independence. So trying to transition a country from a very traditional society to a modern one with a modern economy is quite challenging itself. Also, with the population quite small for the size of our country, 8 million people, 70% of them living in a rural setting, getting government services and access to opportunities in business and the economy is quite challenging. But I know that over the next 5 to 10 years, we have now got enough political stability in policies that will enable the growth that we are achieving today to continue to be maintained.
Scott, earlier you talked about how you're tapping technology to ensure the business stays relevant in the future. Has it been difficult?
No, I think that, once you have the platform, it's really just about creating the compelling assortment that brings e-commerce on. The investments that we've made in Yihaodian, for example, in China, going back to that example, have been basically leveraging a great technology platform, but it's basically driving traffic and then completing the last mile delivery. And what we're finding in China, much like we're finding in other urban cities, in tier 1 cities in China with Shanghai and Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Beijing, is that an apartment dweller, for example, struggles to be able to have a delivery and have someone at home, especially if they're young professionals. And this is where we see the opportunity of this O2O, which President Xi Jinping has talked about, the online to the offline, which is an online order can actually have multiple ways to be transacted, either delivered to your home or picked up at one of our stores, or to click and collect or a pickup point. And I think it's establishing that network, to me, which is an important part. So we haven't found it difficult, but there is an enormous amount of investment in infrastructure. And, we're long in China. Yes, there's risks, but I generally find, most low risk-free investments are rather unattractive returns. For us, we think that the risk return is very attractive still in China.
Mark, have you had to tweak your strategy given a slowing China and changing dynamics in the Asia-Pac region?
I think our business is a business where the underlying factors are structural drivers that are not going to be changed by any short-term economic effects. So underlying our business is the change in demographics, is the urbanization, is the emerging middle classes, are the savings rates, the protection rates. These are going to happen as Asia continues to grow and develop. These factors will be there. And if you look at the future, I think the work we've done shows that there'll be twice the urban population, 4 times the total population, 8 times the spending power of the G7 by 2020, which is another $3.8 trillion of spending coming into the economies. It's 1/6 of government spending on social care. It's 1/16 of healthcare. All of these factors are exceptionally positive factors for the business that we are in, which is a medium to long-term financial services business. So short-term fluctuations in the economies make little difference to us. On the asset side, when we buy bonds, we hold to maturity. We don't trade. We're long-term investors in stock markets. So underlying this, say, short-term fluctuations don't concern us. We've been around in Asia for 100 years, and we're very confident that the future is going to be even brighter.
Mark talks about demographic dividends. It could be demographic bane as well, if not managed properly, Raymond. Isn't that true? I mean, what if employment or jobs can't be created, for instance? That could be detrimental to some of the economies, the emerging economies in particular.
Well, there are a range of challenges. Demographics are certainly included. The need to continue to create jobs at scale remains a priority, and it's going to. This is facilitated by improvements in in the system, if you will, the economic system, the deepening of the integration, as I had mentioned before, the facilitation of capital flows, not only within a jurisdiction or within an economy, but across jurisdictions. All of this leads to positive or virtuous circle as far as growth being tied to social enhancements, economic growth being tied to social enhancements, being tied back to economic growth. And so it's again, it's a risk, but it's an opportunity. And the region shows a great deal of opportunity from that perspective. As I mentioned in the context of China, we can't de-risk the development of markets, but we can be aware and manage it carefully.
And how are you managing that, Prime Minister O'Neill? I mean, we talk about job creation. It's not just about jobs, but jobs which will be relevant for a future economy.
What we're trying to do is in our country is basically trying to create jobs that will complement industries that we already have. For instance, the petrochemical industry. We are trying to develop that because we've got a very large reserves in gas, which can create thousands of jobs for our people. Secondly, we are creating a agricultural sector, developing that to make sure that we have small to medium enterprises participate meaningfully. Where our land is traditionally owned by communal ownership, we're trying to get communities to participate in development of large-scale agricultural activities and produce where they participate meaningfully by utilization of their land as well. For governments, we're trying to also provide much better and concessional capital to many of the small farmers, so which will enable them to have access to credit where they are not able to do so in the normal commercial financing arrangements that we expect people to conduct themselves. But in the instance where rural communities are not able to have easy access to credit, we must participate by providing such concessional terms to borrowers who are able to develop agriculture and tourism and other small to medium enterprises, which will create jobs, lift standards of living, and provide opportunities for families.
Yeah, I just, we overplay this risk. I mean, the average age of this audience is probably skewing to a little over 40, right? This isn't our first time. 97, there was an enormous economic challenge, 2008, 2009. I think the reality is, if you look back in the last 20 years in the Asia-Pacific region, poverty has reduced. You've seen a burgeoning middle class grow, increase. Healthcare has improved. So I just think that competent governments and public-private partnership can go a long way to mitigating all of these risks. And if one were to look at the last 20 years and project forward, if we have the same gains of the last 20 years over the next 20 years, I think we'll be fine.
Earlier we talked, I think Raymond mentioned TPP. Trade liberalization becomes even more important when growth is slowing and when trade is easing in the world. What trends are you seeing right now? I mean, are economies getting more nationalistic as the need to globalize increases?
Yeah, I mean, there is the irony of trade globalizing. The movement of goods and capital becoming easier. At the same time, there are protectionist actions going on in response to exactly this globalization of trade, and it's understandable, in my opinion. There is no way to create only winners, and so it's a question of creating more winners than losers, and making sure that there is an appropriate social and economic safety net as this transformative process goes on. Governments are working very hard to try and balance these these trends. It's not for lack of awareness, but it is challenging. And that is simply going to be in my view, it is simply going to be a part of what has to be managed, because the choice of doing nothing is really not an acceptable choice and is not going to contribute to economic or social prosperity in the future.
How are you both navigating it, Mark and Scott? I mean, under such an environment.
Well, you know, if you look at the shape of the TPP, you know, it is in essence reducing protectionism that already exists, and it's a transitional process. It isn't an overnight process. I think that it has been proven time and time again that open economies and a market economy has a far greater access to growth than those who are steeped in a higher level of protectionism. I think in challenging times where there may be a lot more concern about the risks, et cetera, you might see a little bit of backsliding. But in general, certainly if we were to look at the markets from which we source, the markets in which we operate retail, we don't see protectionism rearing. I don't believe that it is something that is used as a mechanism to protect markets to the extent it used to be.
Yeah, I think history tells us that opening up goods and services, opening up IP is positive and constructive for growth. And I think the theme of this conference is, or this summit is about inclusive growth, which is critical. And I think to all the points that have been made, it's important that it's inclusive rather than exclusive. And TPP could be argued as being exclusive. And the more inclusive, the more countries that can be involved across the region, again on a broad basis, the more positive it is. So I think we run a sort of a business on national boundaries, and therefore the international boundaries don't really affect us. But fundamentally, we know, and history tells us, that it's got to be a good thing to be opening up, and it's got to be a good thing to be inclusive.
TPP exclusive, Prime Minister O'Neill, you're excluded. Your views on that?
Well, for us, it's about getting the balance right, making sure that the demands of your citizens who are wanting to participate meaningfully in a growing economy is against trying to attract more foreign investment direct investment into one's economy. Once you manage those issues, I think you'll find that if we are getting more and more of our citizens from low income and into a middle class, their desire to participate in the economy and trying to protect what is their new standard of living is going to become more evident. So governments must get the balance right so that we are not excluding our citizens from being able to have the opportunity to participate meaningfully in getting skills, getting of course opportunity to invest in the economy. Those are things that governments need to address.
Has business as usual run its course, Scott?
I'm not sure I know what that means, actually.
Do you do your business the same way as you did? Are you planning to do your business differently 5-10 years down the road?
So
what has changed?
I think the pace of growth has changed in a very accelerated manner. But I think the ability of companies and governments to manage and change quickly has also increased. So, you know, for me, business as usual means that you stay ahead. You're very clear what your customers need. You make sure that you are, in our case, the highest quality product, lowest costs provided to them, so that they, as we say in our philosophy, is save money, live better. We believe that that is a role that we play. But to me, that's been business as usual for a long time, and I think it's just the acceleration of change and the adaptation to change that has to.
What would be a
increase.
game changer for your business in the next 5 to 10 years? What are you looking at differently?
Every country in the world joins TPP. That would be a game changer.
I have a cheerleader in every panel that I moderate. Raymond.
I guess in one respect, I would say business as usual has always run its course. You know, it's never going to be conducted the same way tomorrow as it was yesterday. At another level, though, I actually think for our business, in the form of providing credit ratings, insightful research, a vocabulary for thinking about risk, credit risk, the facilitation of capital flows around the world, that's in fact being reinforced. The more that trade and capital globalizes, the more the demand for that kind of a service or product is going to grow. And so I don't see for our business a fundamental change in what we are trying to get to the marketplace. Similar to what Scott said, the highest quality products are what you're trying to achieve. But the modalities, the mechanisms for doing that undoubtedly will be changing over time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is no limit. I think for our business, what is key is as people's income increases, in the early days they'll look to house their family, feed their families, put a roof on their heads. As they accumulate assets, they look to protect those assets, in their lives and the lives of their families. And we see an exponential takeoff of insurance at around US 10,000 GDP per capita. And if you look at the Asian countries, half are significantly less than that. China's, the Thailand's, the Philippines are there. The opportunity is unlimited. And I think going back to I think what Ray said, it then comes to people and execution, and ensuring you organize yourselves, you have the resources, you have the best people, and you execute well. But the fundamental opportunity we see is a greater future ahead, a greater opportunity ahead than we've ever seen.
Execute well, great quality, but we're not talking about innovation. I mean, the economy of the future will be different. We're talking about a sharing economy, for instance, a driverless car, for instance. I mean, how are companies today preparing for the future economy? I guess that's how I see it. I mean, where is innovation, entrepreneurship in your own respective economies and also businesses?
I think every company in the world works on innovation. I think every country in the world works on innovation.
What are you working on? I mean, what would you like to see?
E-commerce is an area where we're working in a very innovative way.
How so?
Well, we look at new ways to do deliveries. There's.
Are you looking at drones, for instance?
We are looking at drones, actually, and I think there was a recent article about our application to look at drone delivery. And look, in some ways that's probably a long way off from being a fundamental cost reduction in terms of last mile delivery. But again, it's the advent of innovation. We look at innovation in product development. You look at new ways to do packaging to reduce the cost, to be able to improve the shelf life of product. If you were to look at some of the opportunities to be able to reduce the destruction of food in the supply chain, it requires a lot of technology and innovation. So we very much invest in it. I think our customers expect it, and I think to stay ahead, to stay a winner in any economy and in any business, you've got to innovate.
And governments too, Prime Minister.
Yes, I know that in my own experience in my country, we need to do more in taking this time to reassess how we have been conducting our business over the past few years, where we've taken for granted that this growth will continue over an extended period of time. So it has given us an opportunity to readjust the way we deliver some of our services to our people, particularly the cost of it, making sure that we live within the new means of revenue that we've got, and at the same time trying to ensure that our people do not continue to lag behind. We need to take them with us. By now investing heavily into infrastructure, what we're doing is we not only roads and ports and airports, but we are investing into telecommunication, where now we've got almost 90% coverage for the entire country, which was not possible 5 years ago. We've got 30% of our people having access to power generation. We want to put another 70% of our people within the next 7 years. So those are sort of ambitious targets that we've got, which will transform the economy as well as improving living standards for our people. So that's the sort of investment that we are making as we speak today.
Mark?
I think a couple of angles. I think in our industry, what is people are continuing to focus on is wellness, is on behavioral lifestyle. Three actions we all take lead to 4 diseases, lead to 60% of all deaths. And that's what we eat, what we drink, whether we smoke and whether we exercise. That leads ultimately to 60% of all mortality. So trying to support people, to encourage them to eat better, to exercise, to live a longer, healthier, better life is a clear focus. And there are many elements of innovation. We're working in the field of genomics in looking again at genetics, looking at where we can take that, align that to artificial intelligence and big data, and you have an incredible opportunity to look at a medical pathway for each and every person during their life and how you look and how you treat that. The speed of genomics is moving at 6 times the speed of Moore's law. The science is going unbelievably quickly. How you catch up on the applications. Innovation, we support a number of innovation labs in Singapore and other places, looking at ways we can, with wearables, looking at how we can, one of our teams looking at forecasting a heart attack 10 minutes, a cardiac arrest 10 minutes before it happens, because the time, that 10 minutes, every minute is a minute of life. All of these things we're using technology to look at in the future, and this is again incredibly exciting, staying on the edge of technology and using technology as an enabler for the business rather than trying to resist it or deny it.
I don't think we're going to be delivering credit ratings by drone. I wouldn't predict that. But to Mark's point, using big data as an example may very well improve the predictive content of our credit opinions. It may improve the insight that we can put into our research. And so making use of something like that is certainly a pathway to, again, reinforcing the quality of what we already do. And we would be very alert to those kinds of opportunities.
I would like to open the discussion to the floor. If there are any questions, could you raise your hand, and I think a mic will be coming your way. There's a question over there. Oh, actually, that mic's along the pathway. Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning. My name's Alison Barris. I'm the CEO of Griffin's Foods, which is a food manufacturing company in New Zealand. And my question is directed at Scott Price from Walmart. Aside from the risks around economic stability in the region, it would appear within the food retailing sector that many of the giants of the industry are struggling to find a clear path to growth. Examples are Woolworths in Australia, Tesco's in the UK, all of which have had a pretty rough few years. I'm really interested in your view on what it takes to be a top-performing retailer in a highly competitive and dynamic market. And also, what are the traits that will differentiate your core suppliers in the future with your drive to growth?
Wow. Well, Woolworths is an outstanding retailer, but it's a bordered market, and I think it has matured very quickly over the last 10 to 15 years. I think if you were to look at any market, the biggest changes you see are changes in format. So hard discounters are playing an important role in forcing traditional retailers to relook at their path to market. Generally, they have much smaller numbers of items. They focus on high-quality private brand, and they bring them in at a lower cost. And I think that that's a challenge for not only the suppliers of raw materials, but also for branded companies like yourself. I think that with the advent of free trade, the TPP, certainly New Zealand and your own trade minister, Tim Grosser, has been a multi-year cheerleader for the TPP, probably for exactly the purpose of ensuring that New Zealand branded products have an opportunity to have access. So I think quality products at great prices wins every time, and I think that's an opportunity for any branded company. In terms of retail, I think you have to stay ahead of the customer and competition. I personally think that you're going to see more and more the online to offline interaction. I think you're going to see pure play online. Look for ways to have bricks and mortar capability. Customers, in many cases, want to touch and feel technology before they purchase, so you have this concept called showrooming. The ability to pick up and deliver is going to be important beyond just the traditional home. And for a bricks and mortar retailer, the ability to give your customer an added level of convenience as opposed to during normal shop hours. So I think just the overall trends that we're seeing will continue, and everyone's going to have to work hard. There will be winners, there will be losers. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Henry Lim. I'm the chairman, CEO of SL Agritech Corporation. We are a company engaged in the research and development of rice varieties, and I understand that PNG is not really producing rice, and they've been importing rice for a long time. I'd like to ask Excellency whether is there any plans of trying to produce rice in PNG, so that at least I think we have sent some of our researchers there already, and hopefully we could try to come up with something in PNG.
Thank you very much. And yes, rice has become a staple diet for many of our citizens for many years now, and we import rice from our neighboring countries within the region. We have just recently set in a new policy where we are now trying to encourage companies to grow rice in Papua New Guinea by giving them import quotas, where the more you grow, the more you will be allowed to import while the growing stages take place. So there will be some announcements over the course of next few weeks, which will be competitive, so that we encourage rice growers who are wanting to produce rice in a growing market. You can be able to do so.
Are there other questions? Please.
Hello, good morning. Christina Ampil from PwC. We almost live in a Jetson age. It's kind of unbelievable what we can do now. But these are just opening acts. Can you tell us how the next 5 years kind of will be so different in your areas?
Mark, shall we start with you?
Well, I think to a degree, just to answer the question, in looking at, say, the whole behavioral economics, the whole area of genomics, genetics, I think these are major forces, major changes aligned with the use of artificial intelligence and big data. I think they're probably the most significant force of change that we see over the next 5 years.
In our business, I think Asia actually is a terrific example. We're going to see tremendous growth in capital markets over the next 5 years. Domestic, cross-border, the relationship of the capital markets to the banking systems in a number of countries, and changes in law and regulation to keep pace with those, in some cases to lead, in other cases to keep pace with where the markets are going. So I would expect in this region in particular to see a very dynamic growth in capital market activity.
Prime Minister.
I share the same sentiments that APEC economies will continue to lead the recovery of the global economy itself. And of course, more and more of our citizens will move from a low-income earning families to a middle class in huge numbers over the next 5 years. That will provide an avenue for future growth for many of the economies. And I think governments need to continue to improve on the way they do business with private sector, encourage more private-public partnerships in many of the issues such as infrastructure building, and that will stimulate the growth of our economies.
I think that technology will continue to drive Jetson-like, and there's some young people here who have no idea who the Jetsons are, but some Jetson-like technology that is all fun and exciting, driverless cars, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I think will happen. What I hope happens is that we begin in the next 5 years to leverage technology to figure out how we are going to keep 9 billion people alive on this planet. The impact that we are seeing globally, whether it be on the oceans and whether it be on forests, et cetera, a lot of technology is going to have to figure out how humankind reduces its impact upon the planet as it consumes more and more. I just think that it's something that we don't invest probably enough time and energy talking about, and I think it's going to be very important in the next 5 years.
Just to wrap up, final thoughts from the panelists on what you think is the key challenge as the Asia-Pac region tries to pursue sustained growth going forward. We'll go down the line again.
I think on a macro basis, I think the focus on inclusive, I think is absolutely key. The challenges on an industry or local basis will always be on prioritization of initiatives and capital and availability of the right people. I think it's those elements that I think have been a challenge and always will remain a challenge.
Raymond.
I would say the effective development of markets at a truly regional level as opposed to a national level. Certainly there is continued opportunity at the national level, but real integration in terms of changes in law, regulation, the ability to facilitate capital movements across countries in the most effective way possible, I think is really critical.
That's something like the AEC. Is it?
Yes, and there are a number of examples, but that would be one.
Prime Minister O'Neill.
Well, expansion of the TPP arrangements to other economies in the region. We'll be quite happy to participate in that as well. And of course, access to capital for especially some of the small economies in the region.
Just continuing to remove trade barriers, bureaucracy, and offering economic opportunity to economies that are still developing.
Scott, Raymond, Prime Minister O'Neill, and of course, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, our panelists, please give them a hand.